I see two very common extremes occurring in everyday life, and they are extremes that are frequently ruining people's lives. And I mean ruining them. And they're in regards to thinking. People either tend to be on the side of overthinking or the other extreme of not thinking at all. And neither one serves us very well as human beings. When it comes to overthinking, I'm confident that the reason we experience that is because we have a hard time separating ourselves from our thoughts and our emotions. We identify with our thoughts and our emotions, and we think that just because a thought occurs into our head or just because we're feeling a certain way means it's true. And that is false. I once heard it described as billboards. Thoughts and emotions being like billboards. They're going to be something that as you drive down the highway, you're going to experience them. You're going to see them on the side of the highway. There's a thought, there's a thought, there's a thought, but I don't have to listen to it. There's an emotion, there's an emotion, there's an emotion. I could acknowledge it's there, it exists, but it's not part of me. I don't have to completely envelop this thought or this emotion and identify with it and say, yes, this is true. Not necessarily, right? I can see these things, I can recognize that they are passing me by in my experience of life, and I can continue to go around my day and say, well, that's kind of a lousy emotion to feel. I acknowledge that, there was a part of me that experienced that, but I'm not going to identify as being sad all day. Or there's a thought, and it's kind of a lousy thought about my friend. I acknowledge that it's there, but it's passing me by. It's not a thought I want to continue to let permeate in my mind. Right? So that's the first extreme. And like I said, that first extreme is typically caused by us identifying with our thoughts and feelings instead of remaining separate, instead of acknowledging that we are a separate entity experiencing thoughts and emotions, but not actually existing as them. There is a difference. The other extreme is not thinking at all. And of course, this is also going to lead to a great deal of discomfort, because what frequently happens when we don't think is we allow others to do the thinking for us. We allow our external environments to impact our thinking. We experience something and people tell us. They tell us whether it's true or not. They tell us what to think about it. They tell us how we should respond to it. Oh, I don't like living here. No, you're fine. You can live here the rest of your life. Or, oh, good. Well, then go do something about it right now. And we let our external environment handle our thinking when we don't think. And the difference in these two extremes is one is so personal and internal that it's just too much of that. It's just too much internal focus on our thinking, and we end up identifying with it. And the other is so external that our process of not thinking is completely focused on what's outside of us solving the problem for us. Like I said, we'll turn to our environment, we'll turn to our friends and our family and the people around us in our neighborhood to kind of guide us in our life. We just won't think. Instead our friends will say, yeah, you should buy the new Xbox. And we just will. We'll buy the new Xbox. You should binge watch this show every night after work. And we just do it. We don't think about it. We don't process it, right? And the result is, well, we still experience negative emotions, right? In the case of letting others think for us, we might not experience any purpose or meaning in our life. And in the case of the extreme of overthinking, we might experience a great deal of stress and anxiety, right? And so both are forms of thinking on two different ends of the spectrum that don't serve us, right? One is like 100% and the other is just non-existent. And one is a little more internally focused and the other is completely leaning on things outside of ourselves to dictate our life's choices. And so what do we do How do we solve these problems? How do we face these things? Well, honestly, they're quite simple. It's very easy to take any extreme and to tune it in more to the center, right? Because life is a balance. You'll almost always find that everything has a season, everything has a cycle, everything has a beginning and an end, and that there's always a balance in the middle of all that. So what do we do? Like I said, when we're overthinking, it's us taking things too personally. We're taking ourselves too seriously. We're identifying with our thoughts and our emotions. And we have to just teach ourselves slowly through repetition to back off from that, to see the emotions we're feeling and to see the thoughts that are going through our head and not make them us. Look at them and say, there's a thought. That's not necessarily true or false. I'm going to let that thought exist. Actually, Leila Hermosi does a great job with managing overthinking. She says when she has a thought or an emotion, she doesn't reject it. She doesn't push it out and force it away and run from it. She just takes that thought, that crazy thought, that negative thought, that crazy emotion that we don't want to experience, and she puts it in what she calls her purse. And she carries it with her all day in her purse, but she doesn't take it out of the purse, right? So that's a great way to look at it. It's to say, here's a thought. I think this crazy, bad, negative, ridiculous thing, and it won't leave my mind. I'm going to put it in my purse and carry it around with me. There's an emotion, feeling sad. All right. I'll think about that. Maybe I will feel sad. I'll put that in my purse and I'll go around my day and continue to live. Continue to live, not identify with that emotion, not identify with that thought, not label it as good or bad. Just put it in my purse, my satchel, my backpack, carry it with me for the rest of the day, and refuse to identify with it. So what about the opposite side of this? What about the non-thinkers? It's just a little more of identifying with yourself in a different regard, right? Still acknowledging the self, still acknowledging your individuality, but saying, hey, before I lean on someone else's opinion, before I lean on my external environment to influence my actions, I'm going to process this. I'm going to say, wow, my friend told me I should get an Xbox. Let me put away my phone, grab my house keys, go for a walk. Think about this. Do I need an Xbox? Do I need this? Do I need that? Do I have to move right now? Do I own too many belongings? Just process those thoughts and allow yourself the space and the silence to dwell on it a little bit, to hear yourself and say, well, I do have a lot of stuff and I don't need it and I don't use all these things. Okay, maybe it's time to get rid of some of them, Okay, I really don't need an Xbox. I don't need to go out and spend $400 on a new Xbox when I have the last version that I still enjoy using. All these thoughts that we typically kind of let people make the decisions for us and don't do enough of our own thinking. So if you're in a place of experiencing emotional turmoil, maybe stuckness and anxiety or stress or just any lack of drive, one of those negative emotions that we don't enjoy experiencing, and we know it's related to our thinking, whether it's our stinking thinking that's just way too much of focus on something because we took it personally, or just not thinking about things at all, leading us to a life of pain and discomfort through listening to our external environment too much and not doing the work ourselves. Embrace that, right? This video is for you. This is for you. This is your opportunity to say, where am I on this spectrum? Am I on one of these extremes? What do I need to do with this knowledge of knowing I'm on this extreme? I don't do enough thinking for myself, or I just do too much thinking and it is just knocking me on my ass. Great. Nothing wrong with being there. This is your opportunity to turn things around. to start to incorporate habits you do like, that back you away from that overthinking, or that bring you into a place of more frequent expressions of thoughts that are aligned with what your genuine desires and your heart wants. So maybe that's you. Maybe you found yourself to be on an extreme of the thinking spectrum. And thinking is such a problem because you either don't do enough of it or you do so much of it that it is just driving you crazy. Great. That's what this is about. This is about looking at those extremes and realizing that in those extremes, this is what you're doing. Not enough of this, too much of that. Really, all said and done, failure to come into yourself and to realize that you're an individual and you're responsible for yourself, and there are things outside of you, and those things are 100% going to own your thinking if they can. So, that being said, control your thinking. Step into that, embrace that, find yourself, and bring a better result about with your thinking.